Hey, welcome to this week's Star Report for May the 18th through the 25th. Today is after all of the cool intensity of last week, which was the Mercury retrograde, full moon, blood moon, lunar eclipse energy. And that intensity should be waning right now. And luckily for most of that energy that week, the sun was kind of quiet just overnight. So that would have been yesterday, Tuesday. Today is a Wednesday, May the 18th. The sun sort of lit back up and had a couple of flares, but they were small flares. So you should sort of feel a little bit of brain fog and a little bit of heart palpitations. When those start to hit, you'll feel a little bit of pressure. It's such a small little CME, coronal mass ejection, that when it gets here, in a couple of days, I believe it should be here by Thursday, Friday, that it'll be so minor that it won't really be felt as intense. There's always the potential for more flares to happen in between now and then. Right now, the main thing is the coronal hole stream. The little dark spots on the sun as they go through, it's almost like a water hose or a sprinkler. And so when that water sort of comes out, or that energy comes out of the coronal holes, those going to come and give us pressure, right? Sometimes earthquakes and things like that happen on the planet when the coronal hole is pointed at us, and that's just because it intensifies the pressure. So that little CME and that coronal hole are probably going to hit around the same time, which is not going to make it a whole lot bigger or very much more intense. So you should be paying attention that that's going to be okay. We hit the middle, or 7 days in to Mercury retrograde this week. By the end of the week, we'll be halfway through. So that's cool. We're almost through Mercury retrograde. And that solar weather is sort of accompanied today by Mars. Mars is influencing us. So Mars, the planet, sometimes associated with Mars, the Roman god, which is always affecting our solar plexus, right? So the sun and the Mars affecting us right now. And Mars is just the influence that's going to sort of be guiding us through this week. And Mars is going to give us this sense, this desire, this energy to go ahead and desire resolution, simplicity, maybe even justice, right? So things will be made right, or you're starting to see things start to be made right. And so that sequence of Mars influencing that right after all this intensity is good, right? So Mercury retrograde, lunar eclipses, even solar eclipses, and the full moon are all meant to reset and recharge and give you this sort of clearing. So that's nice that we sort of have this Mars energy to give us the gumption to sort of like move through the resolution of all those things that we reviewed over the last week and that are continued to review during Mercury retrograde. And so a little bit of energy that we might be using during this time too is when we're finding these resolutions, sometimes it's forgiveness of others, but also self-forgiveness that we didn't see the pattern the first time, right? A lot of times that we don't want to look at this and we don't focus on how we're supposed to live is because we don't want to recognize the patterns of where we've been wrong or where we could have been better. And so just not knowing is sometimes better for some of us. And this Mars energy is really giving us the energy to forgive ourselves and sort of move past not having seen the patterns that Mercury's showing us, that the lunar eclipse, the full moon are showing us about ourselves, and just that we've been sort of living in a life, and that on the surface of the planet in general for humanity, we are actually living in a patterned life. And sometimes we haven't paid attention to the pattern. And most of the time we aren't even taught to be looking for patterns, right? Sometimes it's once we get past being the age of toddler, pattern recognition is kind of given away unless you're like in coding or something like that. But by pattern recognition, what I mean is like, does the square go into the square hole and the circle go into the circle hole, right? So that pattern recognition is not only for visual stuff and things that we can see, but how the energy in the stars and the heavens, right, shift over time in a similar fashion and in a repetitive fashion, right? So it's almost like if you didn't see, something, if you're going in a circle, if or maybe you're driving to work every day and then maybe you were a passenger and you start to notice things along the roadway that you couldn't see because you were focusing on doing the driving, right? And so this busy society we live in, we sometimes miss all of those patterns. And so Mars is really sort of giving us this pattern recognition and this energy to see the pattern and then act on the pattern, not to go ahead and bury our heads back in the sand and go, oh, that was a great pattern. I hope it doesn't happen next time. Right. And so we can sort of see it ahead of time. And that pattern recognition really is sort of interesting during Mercury, right? So Mercury retrograde, when you look at the understanding or the mythology behind Mercury, when Mercury was a baby, Mercury did some things with herding cattle and stealing cattle of Apollo. And Apollo got really mad, took him to Zeus, which was like the king or the head god, and went to Zeus and said, hey, this guy's stealing my cattle. And Zeus goes, oh, that's what Mercury does. Right. And so Apollo's like, oh, okay, and gave Mercury this golden staff. Right. So this idea of this golden staff is basically the spine, right? The golden staff that sort of helps us move up and down our own energy system, right? And so Mercury is meant to move us along into pattern recognition, to seeing things, letting things go, and moving forward. And so it's interesting that sort of pattern that Mars is influential right after all this retrograde, eclipsing, full mooning kind of stuff, where Mercury is giving us the opportunity to see those patterns and help us move forward, to choose better, to choose a higher path. And so that path, and if you want to do a little bit more research, is called the path of the sun, right? So what's the sun doing? Why are these stars and planets moving in the motions that they're moving in? And so that path that the sun sort of takes, and by path that the sun takes, I mean, if you were going to photograph the sun every day at noon and watch it go through the sky over the year, it's going to make a infinity pattern, or a big ribbon figure 8 pattern. And that pattern actually has a name. It's called the analemma, Analemma. And that analemma is the path of the sun. And we are just had a cross of that path on April the 15th, right? So tax day, woohoo, is when it crosses in April, and then it crosses again when it comes back down after August in September 11th. So April 15th and September 11th is when it crosses. And so that big loop repeats itself in the sky. And sometimes, you know, it yaws and goes back and forth like this, but it's the same pattern, right? And so when we start to pay attention that these grand patterns are happening and that we're riding a wave of cosmic energy, then we can start to have this greater sense of forgiveness and realize that what's happening when these grand cosmic things kind of knock us off kilter is they're actually trying to get us back on the wave, right? So when we start to have trauma and discord in our life is when we get out off of the stream of the sun, right? When we stop following the sun. And so yeah, the analemma is the path in the new sky. And so this idea that we're in Mercury retrograde and it's trying to herd us back into the path of our own sovereignty of being what we're supposed to be is really cool. So this week, you don't really have to pay attention to anything really grand happening. You have to pay attention to what is the pattern of your own life, and then how do you get back on track? And then you use the energy of Mars this week to sort of push yourself through using your solar plexus to see the pattern and then choose the one that you would like and the higher pattern. And then just sort of, instead of looking back where you fell off the surfboard of the wave of the cosmic energy and sort of getting hit again by a wave you're not seeing, right? Instead of looking backwards and trying to see, and examine the pattern and how to ride the wave into the future of knowing that life is about ups and downs, and that is moving in a pattern that is recognizable, not only in our own lifetimes and not only, a couple of weeks at a time, or like a weather report, like, hey, what's the weather going to be today? Should I take an umbrella, or should I, wear short sleeves because it's going to be hot or it's going to be rainy? What you should be doing is like, what is the arc of the energy of the planets, and how do I sort of ride that wave so that I can create a life which is working with the cosmos and not against it, and then isn't stagnant, that is going to get hit by waves all the time because you're sitting there on your surfboard waiting for the perfect wave, right? The ocean is going to keep going. There is no perfect wave. So the energy of Mars this week, after all the stuff is going, is just pick a wave and then start to paddle, right? Move in a direction which you think is comfortable for you, which you feel is in your pattern, and which you feel is in your capability to surf, right? So pretty calm week after a very intense week, which is pretty good. And so if you want to look into what the analemma is and sort of the path of the sun and sort of see what that means, go ahead and do that. If you want to look into Mercury and the Greek understanding of Mercury, Apollo, and the herding of cattle, you can sort of do that. That Mercury is here not to judge us or to even hurt us or to mess with our technology, but to sort of move us in a direction or get us to see that when we follow the golden path, which is, our spine, which is our consciousness, which is the raising of our own awareness, right? So when we follow the path of awareness, we actually know where to go. And so Mercury is here to help us, not hurt us. That would be a good thing to pay attention to. And just sort of understand that the sun might be picking up this week, and that if you have any kind of heart palpitations or nervousness, right, it's because you're getting this energy to start to ride the wave, and you should sort of ease into that nervousness as an exhilaration, not a sense of dread, because the universe is moving in a cyclical pattern and it is working on the behalf of you as long as you follow the path of the sun. So I hope that was good. I hope I didn't talk too fast, but I wanted to get in a lot of information, and it seemed like a whole lot that I might talk for hours. I hope that information was good for you and that you can find your own patterns, and you can find some self-forgiveness for falling off the wave and just surf a little better this week. Yeah, many blessings. And until next time, like and subscribe at the bottom of the video if you can. And we will see you again here next week when the solar system will still be moving in a pattern which is for us, not against us. Bye-bye.